Are we gonna?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for making it to our Thursday's Tool and Technique session. Today, we are hosting Mpho Madolo, and we are very excited for her to share on demystifying business relationship management. I'm going to share a bit more with you about who Mpho is and what she does. But first and foremost, I just want to give you a brief indication of what the rules are for the session so that you're all aligned and understand what to expect. So first and foremost, I'm going to go through the whole list in the interest of time. Quickly scan through it. I'll just highlight some points that are quite important. First of all, if possible, please can you stay muted and less clear to talk. This will just help that there's no noise pollution and Mpho is not distracted. Also, please also keep your videos off. We may get a Q&A session at the end where you can put your videos on so we can see you guys. Also, please note that if you have any questions from Mpho, feel free. Any questions or queries or just comments or wow, well done, that was awesome. I didn't know that. Post that on the chat so that we can understand more about your views and also so we can share it later. So also you don't forget your questions. If you want to be an IBSA member, please do go onto the IBSA website for more information. Please stay tuned in also on the IBA website on the events page for more events that we have as IBA. Then the last bit of rules is that if you, as mentioned, have any question post the Q&A session or in the Q&A session, feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself. Preferable, that will depend on the amount of time we have. The preference is for us to just read the questions on the Q&A as it saves us time. Then the last bit that I'm going to highlight, because I want to take all the time and give it to Mpho to share as much as you possibly can, is that the presentation will be uploaded on our YouTube page. Mpho, is that okay? We tend to upload the presentations on YouTube for guests to see post the session, especially for those who could not make the session. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's okay. Ketelo, you and I will touch base to just iron that out properly, but no issues whatsoever.
Okay. Perfecto. Right. So let me just do a brief introduction from Mpho before we continue. So Mpho Madolo is a dynamic IT professional with almost 20 years experience in the industry, an advocate of IT value delivery through strategic partnering and transformation. Mpho has been instrumental in initiating and establishing the first ever chapter of the Business Relationship Management Institute, for which she's currently serving as the first president, director, and chairperson. She has held various roles during her career, spanning multi-dimensional responsibilities, including strategy, development, product management, business intelligence, business analysis, programming, business process management, innovation, architecture, and several other middle and senior management responsibilities, including pioneering and championing the establishment and the operationalization of the BRM capability and the role of ACSA, which is the Airport Company of South Africa. There's a whole lot more that you can read about Mpho on her LinkedIn profile. Go to Mpho Madolo and check her up and link up with her to understand more of what she has to know and what she has to share. For now, I'm going to be introducing her, and I want to thank you, Mpho, for making time to be part of our session and for being willing to share your knowledge in BRM, which is Business Relationship Management. Help us demystify today and have fun. Thank you so much again for being willing to participate.
Thank you, Ketelo, for that gracious introduction, and thanks for the invite. I want to just greet also the people that have joined online. I'm not able to see all of you because of my settings, but I'm sure that we will be able to connect the best way we know how with the new way of working. So as Ketelo has mentioned here, I really just wanted to share with you the business relationship management concept so that we can just demystify it. I know that we've had a few talks with Edward around this particular challenge, And he shared also some of the challenges that you have, something similar to what we are facing in the BRM profession, in terms of having to explain at any given point in time what it is exactly that we do and what our roles entail. So if you will allow me, I will step right into it. This is just a brief of what I am planning to share with you today, just as a way of giving context of the discussion. I'm not sure, like I said, who of you here have an idea of what the BRM entails, but I would just like to start off with a story. As you can see on the picture, there's a man in the parachute and there's a man on the ground with balloons. So the story goes like this. The man in the parachute is actually lost. And so he's closer to the ground. And on his way down, he sees the man on the ground and he strikes a conversation because he's actually lost. So his conversation goes, "Hey, do you know where I am? I am lost." So the man on the ground looks at him and he says, "Yes, I know where you are. You are in a parachute and you are about a few centimeters above the ground." So the man in the parachute looks at him and he says, "Listen, do you work in IT?" The man on the ground says, "Yes, but how did you know?" The man in the parachute goes, "Listen, you told me all the answers that are correct, yet they are not helping me with anything at all. They are all correct, but they're not helping me." Then the man on the ground looks at him and he says to the man in the parachute, "Do you work for business by any chance?" The man in the parachute says, "Yes, how did you know?" Then the man on the parachute on the ground says to the man in the parachute, "You ask the questions that I give you answers to, and if those answers are not what you want to hear, suddenly I am to blame as the IT guy." So I don't know how many of you can identify with that kind of scenario where business and IT seem to be talking different languages. In fact, it can be, in some cases, some of the articles that I've come across have described the relationship as a relationship on a rock. But I mean, I think you would agree with me that we've come a long way in trying to mend whatever it is that we think is wrong. I can give you just as a way of just solidifying that whole perception about us, is that one of the organizations within the consultation spaces ran a survey for one of their clients to try and understand what improvements they can make, and in the IT department specifically. And this is what they came up with. There are various views, that are being shared between IT and business. We all have opinions of each other here. As you can see on the screen, business will give you feedback such as, "Listen, we are at the mercy of the external vendors. We don't see IT at all. We're speaking past each other," as the parachute story goes. When you speak to IT, if you get 10 people that you speak to, you can be sure that they will all give you different answers. So really the problems are endless in terms of what it is that we believe we should be improving on at the end of the day. So one of the recommendations that were given, I mean, the next slide continues to just paint a picture of all the problems that IT has with business and the business has with IT. And one of the solutions that this particular consultant came up with was to introduce the business relationship management role and capability, which brings me to the next slide then. Because in fact, business relationship management, as much as it's known as a role, it is also a capability. So in other words, we're not looking at one individual or a team that are called business relationship managers that are going to be dealing with relationship issues. You can have a capability as a way of a discipline, which means that it's a set of competencies and way of working, which can really be adopted by anyone in the IT organization that has a relationship with business. Because I think another misconception really around the role is that we are the single point of contact. That is not really correct. So the BRM Institute defines it as BRMs being that the overall responsibility of that the BRM is not the only role that interacts with business or that has a relationship with business. That is just another misconception I think we need to get out of the way as we try to really understand. So just as a way of expanding further on the relationship, these three themes of the role, I think, also gives a very good understanding of what the role entails. So one is the navigator. As you can see, I think those pictures also give context to what we are talking about, the metaphors of a navigating equipment there. We've got a connector on the right-hand side, and we have an orchestrator at the bottom. And the gist of it really is to say that the BRM as a role focuses on relationships, and the BRM will do what it takes, be it navigating, be it connecting, be it orchestrating, to ensure that value is delivered to the business, whatever it takes. So the navigation role, serves three primary aspects. We're talking convergence between IT and business. I know that the popular word there is alignment, but there's a certain connotation with alignment that implies that these are two different entities that are moving in, separately, but are trying their best to align. Whereas convergence is talking to two entities that are on their way to becoming one. So that is the navigation role that the BRM plays. The connecting role really speaks service that is required from within. BRM is able to connect the provider with the business, and the provider, I mean, in this context would be IT, with the business, depending on what the need is. I know that there is also a notion that says, but we also have the likes of service managers or service level managers that do that. But the reality is that the service level management deals precisely or mostly with services that are already in the environment, that are already operational, whereas the BRM cuts across. So in fact, the BRM is looking at end-to-end value, end-to-end interaction, and end-to-end relationships. So that is what the connector role would entail. Then you move to the orchestrator. This one is a bit more interesting in that, everyone can relate to an orchestrator, of a band. So if you have different people playing instruments, the one is a pianist, the other one is plays violin, there's another one, a saxophonist, and so on. The BRM does not play that the melody is what it's supposed to be. If you have a Richmond that says, listen, play me a certain a symphony, it is the role of the BRM to understand when to play it, how to play it, and who to put together to be able to produce the exact sound that is needed. And the BRM will orchestrate from the beginning until the end, and actually go to an extent of checking for feedback from the Richmond to say, sir, is this what you had ordered? So I just thought that that was also a nice analogy to be able to throw in the mix as we try to demystify. Ketelo, I'm not sure if then we would, I think I'm looking at the chats at the same time.
Mpho, your line sometimes goes bad. I don't know if it's your connection. Is it possible to check if your feed is stable?
Right, I think. All right, let me try and switch. I'm hoping that nothing is going to break while I do. I've got an alternative. I can quickly try to switch to it.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so I've switched networks. I don't know if it is any better.
Yeah, for now it's good. So we had to switch off your video feed to try and stabilize it. We'll let you know if anything has changed.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Okay. So I think what I also wanted to share is the sample of the BRM framework that we've managed to come up with, you know, as we went along and jumping from one company to the next, just trying to demystify it. And this is something that we've come up with that we think is going to work you know, in most organizations. Obviously, a framework in its nature is that it's adaptable and, you know, it serves as a guide. And this really is an extract of some of the concepts from the BRM Institute, which I'm going to share the details of at the end of my presentation. So the BRM Institute is actually the mother body which we belong to. You know, they're based in California, US, and as the local South African chapter, we affiliate to that mother body. And there's a whole host of information on their site and exciting content being added every now and again. And it would actually be a great resource to tap into if you want to know more about the BRM, both as a capability and as a role. So if you look at the sample framework in front of us here, we have 4 quadrants. We've got the relationship management, we have value focus, which deals mostly with demand management. We have IT value perception, we have engagement, education, communication, and IT awareness. So for me, this really further cements the you know, nature of the BRM role. If you had to plug it in and actually even compare it to other roles that are in the environment, particularly in the IT space, there are some thoughts around how different it is, the likes of the business analysis profession, how alike or how different is it to the likes of the enterprise architecture and so on. So I think as we go through the slides and as we anticipate questions at the end, I'm hoping that the questions will become answered more and more as we delve deeper. So the next slides really will talk to each one of these quadrants just to give an overview of what we're talking about when it comes to the business relationship management. So the first quadrant deals with relationship management itself. So if I may just, I don't think I've mentioned that BRM is really can be used interchangeably with the likes of account manager or business partner, some people will call it. So when we talk about that profession, you would know that it's not only applicable to the IT as a provider or a service provider, but also to the likes of HR, to the likes of finance, to the likes of SCM, and so on. But my background is IT, and I know that in the business analysis space, it is IT. Therefore, this is has been customized to speak primarily to the IT environment. I have been a business analyst in my past life before. I think, Ketolo, you mentioned that in your introduction. So I do feel at home. Perhaps maybe I should not relax too much, but I do feel at home. And I'm able to talk to the BA role also in comparison to the BRM role. And what I can say is that relationship management, as you can see here, is at the gist of what a BRM is concerned about. You know, the establishment of the relationship, the improvement of the relationship, and the maturity of the relationship. That is the primary focus of the role. As you can see here, as a way of an example, business in this particular instance would be your various business divisions, obviously depending on how an organization is structured. And then you would have your IT division being the provider, with the BRM sitting right in the middle there, making sure that there is constant business value add and that we have the right conversations with business from an alignment / convergence perspective. So this is how you would position the BRM role. Something else that I have not depicted here is that you will find that you come across two types of BRMs. You have the strategic BRM and you have what we call the tactical BRM. And in its nature is that your strategic BRM deals with issues that have to do with maturing the relationship, with issues that make sure that there is constant value add, and that's basically what I've depicted here. The tactical BRM almost overlaps with other roles, you know, in most instances, because the tactical BRM gets much more involved in things like projects, you know, whereas the strategic BRM doesn't necessarily do that. You know, the BRM at a strategic level will play an oversight role to make sure that whatever the demand is that has been, you know, sourced from business into the IT space, it delivers the value that it's supposed to deliver, and that relationships are intact. And by relationships, we're talking about productive relationships. Hence, the BRM would then be involved in everything and everything that the IT service provider is involved in, because theirs is to milk value out of it. So the BRM is value obsessed. Therefore, they will find themselves tapping into each and every service or function that is meant to deliver value to business, just to make sure that we you know, people are held accountable and that we keep to our word as the IT department. So just to further unpack the relationship aspect of the BRM role, as you can see here, the BRM role is concerned, like I said, with relationship building. And naturally, one would then be required to have a portfolio of clients. So, you know, when you are a BRM, you really must be understanding exactly who your customers are, who is IT servicing, and who are these customers? What are they wanting to benefit from IT? What value can our services as IT give to the business? So each one individually needs to be given the attention that they need as far as technology enablement is concerned, not of course forgetting the end-to-end organizational value chain, which would then serve as a base for the architecture team to understand the various capabilities and the integration points, you know, in the organization end to end. So as much as the BRM would give attention specifically to a particular client, you know, we also wear a hat that says, what are those touch points? What are those inputs, outputs, capability wise, to make sure that we don't lose sight of other you know, customers who are part of the value chain of an organization. Okay, so what you see there in front of you is what I've alluded to earlier in terms of the maturity of both the business as well as the provider perspective. So what the BRM, particularly the strategic BRM, is interested in is to make sure that we progress with the relationship between IT and business. We progress through these levels and we actually mature to a point where we are no longer seen as ad hoc kind of service provider. We're not order takers either there at level 2. We're not service provider. We're not even trusted advisor. We're actually strategic partners. So that is the ultimate level that the BRM is aspiring to when it comes to the relationship between IT and business. The minute you start tapping into the trusted advisor as well as strategic partner, you're really working on water as far as the saying that you are not aligning to business, you are actually converging to business and you are part of them. We always say that a good business relationship management maturity is in such a way that, one wonders whether a BRM is really part of business or whether they are part of IT, because you are so entrenched in the business that, you may actually be mistaken to be a business colleague. That is how intense that relationship and that convergence is at level 4 and level 5. The second quadrant speaks to value focus, which really is about demand management. So demand management really is about being able to surface the demand from the business, being able to shape the demand from the business, and being able to communicate that into the IT space in a way that it is bought into, it is well understood consistently throughout the life cycle of that demand. So in other words, the business relationship manager, I don't want to really dwell too much into the next slides because they can be a bit complex. I wanted to just speak on a simpler level about this so that we all get it. But I think it's important to also just give a bit of background in terms of the diagram that you now see on the screen. So the notion here is that there are stakeholder drivers which serve as a mandate into an organization, which then represent stakeholder needs. Those stakeholder needs, that could be a shareholder or whoever it is, the needs will cascade into enterprise goals, which in turn will cascade into IT goals, which then pump into the enterprise architecture, IT portfolio management, and then demand management starts. So this is just one of those models that have been adopted from the likes of COVID and customized somewhat to incorporate the demand management discipline so that there is context in terms of where strategy meets demand management. So I'm happy to actually expand on this when time allows. I'm sure, Ketelo, this is not the last time that we actually get to interact with the community. So I'm more than happy to actually expand on this. I'm just cognizant of time. Therefore, I will just highlight the fact that demand management is the accountability of the business relationship manager, just to give context also into where the other roles would fit in case there are questions pertaining to that. Once demand is managed from an annual perspective as well as from an ad hoc perspective, the idea is to then collaborate through project portfolio management to ensure that the right things are done all the time. So that is now, serving as the alignment between the BRM and other roles yet again. Okay, I'm just going to move swiftly into the next slide. This simply gives another view of demand.
Mpho, can you hear us? Mpho?
I think we've lost her. I'll try to get a hold of her.
Please, just get her on the line as quick as possible.
Apologies about that. I'll just touch on one or two slides. I think I am losing you again.
We can hear you well, Mpho.
Let me know as soon as you can see, and then we will just.
Your feed just broke. I don't know if it's just because you're projecting. Mpho?
Try
Mpho?
again.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry
I think
about
sharing
that.
of Mpho.
Okay, let me stop sharing, and then we can continue with the Q&A as you've suggested, Ketelo. Clearly, we've run out of time. I got too comfortable, like I said, at home, too much at home. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. So I think, yeah, let's just go into the Q&A, and then I'm hoping that some of the answers into these questions are part and parcel of some of the slides we could not share. Tepo, can you just run I see you've got 3 questions or 4 questions, and I prefer if you just ask them yourself. It'll make life a bit easier.
Yeah, so what I wanted to ask is how does one transition from being a BA to a BRM, given that I think you also were a BA before? And the second part of it is, what is the career path of BRM? And the last one is BRM relationships. Is it always in the context of business and IT convergence, or does it also manifest somewhere else?
All right. I'll quickly take those 3. Transition-wise, Tsepo, that's a very good question. We found, and I know that we had this conversation with Edward not so long ago, that the BRM, some of the best BRMs have BA background. Because, I mean, as you can imagine, the skill set that is required there, listening skills, you've got, communication skills that you need, negotiation skills, you've got that empathy. So we are bordering more on soft skills than hard skills, but at the same time, one needs to back it up with some level of understanding, technology-wise, strategy-wise, to be able to be that trusted advisor. So that one is really pretty much seamless. Obviously, there are courses that one can attend. For more information, I think I will be able to share some of the links with Ketelo and other colleagues here to be able to just expand on that question. But it is a natural transition in my view. The second one is around career path for BRM. There's really a perception out there that says that we are the right-hand people for the CIO role. So in other words, if you really put your foot forward and you gun for it, you can actually get into those executive levels that play a generic role. As you can imagine, the way we structured normally in IT, we've got IT in the service management space. Then you've got IT looking after PMO, the GM looking after PMO, or the executive looking, but the BRM is actually an executive role that cuts across, because one has to hold each and every one accountable to be able to deliver to business. So there is nothing that you should not be aware of or fay with at a strategic level. So in fact, there are stories of people that have been shared where they've transitioned straight from BRM to CIO. It's not a far-fetched dream. Okay. The second part is about business IT. Does it only manifest there or in other aspects? It's not only in IT. So this is a business partner role. You find it in HR, you will find it in finance and other functions that are traditionally known to be service providers to what we call the business. Okay, I just quickly rushed through those, but I hope you got the gist of it.
Right, thank you.
Questions?
This is actually a question, and I'd let Edward just make that point. Edward, do you mind? I think that'll be the last part before we close.
Okay, so what I saw when you were displaying that maturity model, and for me, I think the the way it's put across, it definitely resonates with aspirations in the BA space. Obviously, not from a BA, it's not put down in the same way, but I think it's exactly the same. From all the way, from being an order taker all the way to being that trusted advisor.
Oh, you mean the similarities between the BRM and the BA? Is that what you are alluding to, Edward?
Exactly. I think this talks to the BA. Well, in my view, it does. So
all right. Yeah.
Quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation there, Edward. And I want to add again that relationship-wise, there is that recognition that the BA and the EA and other roles within IT, like your service management,
Paul, we missed you there again. I think your line.
No, I think it says here I was muted.
Okay. So we are
yeah, I was muted. Yeah, but you are spot on. I just wanted to point out that from a relationship perspective, there are, like I said, multiple roles within IT that do have a relationship with business. So no wonder you would get those kind of similarities, because the BRM, is the owner of that relationship management capability, which everyone uses as long as they interact with business.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. We've got time for one more question, and it is the last question. And I'd like Njinga to ask the question, and then that will be it for the day. And thank you guys for being patient with us and our technical glitches. Njinga, do you mind?
Thank you so much. My question is quite a straightforward one. I'm in the higher education space. I'm very interested in linking this to one of our programs, particularly the business information system qualification that we have. But I wanted to explore the real differences between BA and BRM. So how do I go about just getting accreditation from the BRM Institute?
A quotation you asked?
No, accreditation in the sense that we include it as part of our curriculum for our students.
Oh, all right, I see. Listen, I mean, I'm sure I will share my details with Ketela. Ketela, please, if you don't mind, because I've included it on one of the slides, but obviously we didn't get to the end. So my details would be president@brminstitute.co.za, and I'm happy to field any further questions that the guys may have on the line here, including yours. I think that's an interesting one regarding the institute. I can actually direct you to the right people for that.
All right, do you mind just repeating your email address?
So my email address is president@brminstitute.co.za.
Perfect. All right, can I hand it over to Tsepo to close? And thank you guys so much for making the session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. Really a very good one to demystify, and very interesting, and the parallelograms between what we do as business analysts and what you guys are trying to achieve. I think there's complementarity, because we can sometimes be on the other side of the divide, either in business or IT, and always I think a lot of the times people call us the bridge, and I think what I've seen is that you guys are playing more the bridge role between IT and business. So this was really very good for our community, and we hope to see you again very soon. President, any last words?
Indeed, it was very good. Thank you, Mpho, for making the time, and thanks for everyone for attending. I hope you have benefited. It's definitely these sessions are meant for this, to widen our horizons and our perspectives on things and on colleagues and in other professions as well. And I'm glad that questions are coming up in terms of transitioning. How do I transition from this space to the other space, which is exactly what we're trying to do, that cross-pollination. BRM is moving to business analysis is moving to BRM, so that opens up the whole space for everyone. I hope you found it as beneficial as I found it. Thank you, Mpho.
Thank you so much, Edward. Thank you so much. By the way, if I may just slot it in there, Edward will be speaking at our first chapter event next week on the 19th of November. Thank you, President. And I'm sure that we will be able to share details for those who want to join in. It's at no cost, just as a way, or to the IIBA members as a way of solidifying our relations, which I'm very excited about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, me too.
Brilliant. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yes.